Today we're going to talk about different kinds of sensors. We use sensors to pretty much take any kind of input signal from the outside world and turn it into an electronic output signal. So it converts from one energy domain, which could be mechanical, electrical, thermal, magnetic, visual, anything like that, and converts it to electrical. So then you can analyze that signal with a microcontroller and figure out what's going on in the environment and then tell your machine how to respond. And sensors make stuff way easier because then you can set things to happen automatically based on sensor input rather than have to have a person sit there and watch it the whole time. So two important parts to the sensor are the input. So that's whatever's that's going to be the detection side. And then the output, which converts it into the electrical side. So that would be the side that goes to the microcontroller. Different types of sensors are passive and active. That's sort of one category. The passive sensors don't require power to operate, and active sensors do. And then analog and digital. So to go into more details on these, active sensors need some kind of external power to operate. So generally that is an applied voltage. And that is almost every sensor that you will use in automation. If it has an output that is electrical, then it generally needs an electrical signal to be able to operate. So examples of those are like limit switches, photoresistors, ultrasonic sensors, pressure sensors, thermistors, anything like that. A passive sensor does not require an external signal, and it just sort of like inherently is able to produce a response. An example of that is a mercury thermometer. So like the thermometers that you have hanging up outside to tell you how hot it is, they don't need power to operate. It just sort of happens automatically. Then analog and digital is the next category. Analog sensors produce a continuous output. So whatever's getting measured, the output signal is proportional to the measurement. So these, when you read them in a microcontroller, they will generally give you a number between 0 and 255. And based on whatever the data sheet tells you, you can convert that between minimum and maximum ranges of whatever the sensor is trying to measure. Digital sensors are discrete and binary. So those are going to be either 0 or 1 for off or on. So when you get a sensor, or when you're looking at sensors, make sure that when you buy it, if you need analog versus digital, it depends how fine tuned you need your control to be. So I guess just some examples of these, an analog sensor would be something like a force sensitive resistor. If you're trying to measure contact and you want to know exactly how much force is getting pressed, then you could use an FSR because that will give you, the resistance will change in proportion to the amount of force applied. If all you need to know is whether or not some contact is occurring, you could use a limit switch or button because those are going to be either on or off depending on whether the pressure on them is above or below a certain threshold. There are lots of different sensor types, and we will talk about most of these.